This is the World Satsanga on the 22nd of February 2014. So we got looking like we're getting everybody in. Let's see who's not there. I think eventually people will start to drop off the system as they. Okay, good, fantastic. Okay, so I've still got Joe, got John, Chris, Lily, Matthias. I don't know if Atso's coming through. Mo's there. Yvonne, no, Atso's disappeared.
I'm here.
Okay, John's there. Ula, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure. Okay, we're all on audio only. I think Adriana's online still. Yvonne. Yep, everybody's there. Good. Okay. If you can all put your microphones on mute, because it helps with reducing feedback. That's great. And I'll go through what the agenda is for today. So I think you're on. I think you need to put your microphone on mute, Mo, if you can. Looking at what's coming through this side. So we can do that. Okay. Can you hear me, Mo?
Yeah.
Can you put your microphone on mute, please?
Coming and down.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Good. Thank you very much for all dialing in today. Okay. So we've got a reasonable agenda today, actually. Clearly we've just dialed in and had a few problems, which is quite normal with Skype. Actually, I'm thinking about using another system later, and I'll allude to that with emails after this particular Satsanga, because I think there's a system which is more stable, that doesn't use my computer as the server itself. We can use another system called Fusebox, but I'm looking at using that, because that's a good webinar tool as well. Well, Ula's coming in for the first time. Ula, do you want to just unmute your microphone, just to introduce yourself for a moment, so the group can know a little bit more about you from your spiritual side?
Yes, this is Ula. I live in Southern California, near Los Angeles. I was born in Finland, educated in Canada, so I've been all over, and I've been through many different teachings and gone through all kinds of books and interviews, radio shows, whatever, and found Guy's material to be the most enlightening of all, and discovered with some sessions, private sessions with Guy, that a lot of the things that I had been reading were actually what he calls misguided physical universe thought forms. So we've been having fun sorting those out.
Well, thank you. In fact, it's quite interesting, because I was listening to a video. I'm not going to name the individual, but the information that came through was very, very much physical universe stuff. Very physical universe stuff. And you think to yourself, well, people are looking at this as being the breaking news, the new news. All of these different civilizations out there, different incarnate vehicles are being used, and different interpretations of dimensions and stuff. And you start to think to yourself, well, this is all down in the physical universe, and it's not to do with going beyond it. And although it was interesting stuff, I very much felt it was a case of, well, mankind can move on from this, because it's very much a case of keeping us here rather than letting us ascend beyond our physical universe. Okay. Righto, so let me just go through the agenda again. We've done the greetings, and thank you, Ula, for introducing the group to you. The group, by the way, grows, and it shrinks and grows depending upon who can make the time period, because obviously the time zone is different for different people throughout the world, and people have their own commitments, of course, physical commitments to work with as well and work around it. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is what makes an energy capable of sustaining sentience, because one of the things I identified last time was that we think of ourselves as human beings, and then when we work with the spiritual work and start to understand a bit more and get more interested and start to do our own investigations, and maybe sometimes we have a teacher who can enlighten us a bit further, we start to realise that we're not the human being we thought we were. We're actually an energy being of some sort. And then recently I've discovered that we're more than energy beings. We are in fact pure sentience that works with, shall I say, a body of energy that's been given to us by our source, or a body of energy that we have commandeered ourselves. So I'm going to talk about what defines an energy that can actually sustain this sentience. And then I'm going to talk about what happens to the earthly personality when it dies. Now, this is a particularly relevant subject for people who have had partners ascend recently, or family members like parents or siblings go recently, because we always think of ourselves as our earthly personality. And what I'm going to do is basically identify what happens there, how it works, and how the information that we've accrued in our incarnation remains with that part of us that is beyond the incarnation, and how it gets passed on. Okay, and then we're going to have an end of meat meditation. And actually, this end of meat meditation, I've changed it because we had a meditation with a Slovenian Satsanga over Matthias and a group in Logitech. And we healed the earth. We felt the earth needed healing, so we did some earth healing there. So I'm going to move away from healing a specific person or friend in this instance, although there's plenty of people who could do with healing. And I want to go through that particular method of healing the earth from a meditation perspective that we used with Matthias. Okay. So what really makes an energy capable of supporting sentience? And it's interesting that in essence an energy needs to evolve to the point where it could have created or supported its own conditions for self-generated sentience before it can be considered specialised enough to support sentience that is both externally created and or assigned to it. And I'm going to backtrack slightly from that statement before I move on, because energy can and does, given the right circumstance, create its own level of intelligence. And then it moves forwards from intelligence, things like preference, wanting to do certain things, experience certain things, and then moves forwards into levels of self-awareness from intelligence. And then it moves from self-awareness to certain levels of creativity to create self-awareness and expand that self-awareness. And this is all very sort of truncated compared to what we've talked about previously. But when it gets to a point of creating situations or environments or other things or other entities, that energy develops sentience. And sentience is something which is transportable. And I'm going to allude to this in more detail in a moment, because sentience is what we really are. We're not energy beings, although we are energy beings, but we are more likely to be classified as sentience that is occupying a body of energy that we have been either given to us by our source or we've commandeered ourselves. Now, depending upon our evolutionary condition, depends upon whether we can actually move away from that body of energy that we have been given by our source, and therefore occupy another body of energy that we have decided to create ourselves. That body of energy would be energies that are capable of supporting sentience, but currently do not have sentience, and or they may be energies that are capable of supporting sentience, but are not large enough from a mass-based perspective. Think of it in terms of they need to be a certain size rather than mass, a certain level of content available to be able to support sentience. You could think of it in another way. You could think of it in terms of having enough disk space on your computer to be able to hold all your programs. If you think of it in those sort of ways, then it makes more sense that a computer needs to be a certain disk size and microprocessor speed to allow it to support certain programs. and older computers won't support the new programs, and this is where I'm getting to in terms of how we can use modern day devices around us or technologies around us to be able to understand why an energy might or might not be able to support sentience. So the evolutionary process that allows energy to achieve the status of being capable of supporting sentience can be described basically in stages. Okay, the first one is the attraction to the same or a sympathetic energy, and by that I mean it is a purely automatic function of one component of energy being attracted to another component of the same or similar energy signature. And that means it's one that is acceptable in some way to energies other than itself. So it's universally acceptable. It's being able to work with all energies irrespective of their own signature. But that type of energy must be capable of having this ability to be attracted to and working with it, and not so much absorbed, but more likely in terms of being able to latch onto or link into or work with or be part of that other energy. The other part of it is the ability to have the ability to create limited intelligence or have preferential activity. And this is the ability to actively seek out components of energy that are the same signature, that is, with the intelligence creating the ability to search for and decide if, for instance, a certain component of energy can be connected to and co-joined to create a bigger body of energy. So this is the ability to seek each other out and join together to create a bigger body of energy and stay together in a way which is sympathetic to each other. The next sort of stage is the limited recognition of self and other energies. Okay, and this is when the volume of collected energies knows in some small way that it is a body of energy and can distinguish between itself and another body of energy, even if it's the same type of energy. So this is energy having the ability to discriminate between itself and other energies and work out whether or not that energy is of the same type of signature, same type of energy, or same type of, shall I say, intelligence-based progression. Next stage is the ability to create a more integrated intelligence. And this occurs when the essentially separated out aspects of energy and intelligence that join together actually become one, rather than groups together. And this is the result of a pan or a cross-energy communication of the co-joined energies. So this is rather than having little pockets of energy that all group together and having little bits of intelligence and little bits of energies together, they actually become a single energy together with a single intelligence together. And this sort of proceeds, or is then moves on to the next stage, which is the ability to sacrifice individuality to create this larger intelligence. This ability to understand there's an opportunity to have a bigger self and a bigger self-awareness by giving up this limited self and this limited individuality. And this happens when there's a level of intelligence of a number of bodies or energies that recognise that they can create a much bigger and better single body of energy and intelligence by joining together. When they also recognise that in order to do so, they need to sacrifice their own intelligence, their own individual intelligence, and willingly do so for a greater good. And this paves the way for consciousness, for conscious intelligence to be created. Which leads into the next stage, because the creation of collective conscious intelligence and the ability to think beyond the self, within the self, is then created. So this is a product of an automatic function that is created upon the collective decision to join larger bodies of energies to create a single larger body of energy itself. That is much larger than its own recently created larger body of energy. So it's almost like these little pockets of energies are joining together to create larger bodies of energies that have initially little pockets of minor intelligence that create a larger intelligence, and then those bigger bodies of energies join together to create a bigger body of energy that has a bigger level of intelligence. So clearly the ability to make the decision necessary to achieve this particular point, in fact the previous point, requires a level of intelligence that has limited levels of consciousness, and that consciousness must be enough to make the decisive ability of individual sacrifice for the greater good. So now we have the creation of a single consciousness, a single intelligence from a collective. So rather than having a collective, we've now got this single individualized consciousness. And the creation of a single consciousness in lieu of a collective of smaller conscious intelligences is really quite a landmark decision that can only be made in a collective condition. However, at this level of evolution, the energy cannot reverse this process, and the consciousness, or the conscious intelligence, becomes as one, with no ability to become a collection of smaller intelligences later. So once it's made this jump into going further, it's lost the ability to reverse that process. Next, we have a movement forwards where there's an active desire to increase energetic volume and intelligence quotient. Okay? So here the energy seeks to increase its volume by seeking out, attracting and absorbing same or similar energies that are similar than itself and really are not necessarily evolving. So they're starting to build upon their own basic energy mass, using energies that are the same but specifically don't evolve, or even specifically don't have this evolutionary content that's given this ability to become intelligent at all. And again, this is a conscious decision, and it's an ultimate sign of the state of ability to recognise the evolution of the self itself. The energies being attracted and absorbed will be at a point close to the first or second level of movement at the maximum. They'll only be just moving along the lines of going down the road of potentially being capable of holding sentience. The energy in this way increases its volume, and in an energetic, intelligent and conscious way that can eventually increase to a point where all same or similar energies are absorbed. So we need to note here that although the signature of all the energies is a natural barrier to this growth, when developing their own, this can be called a terminal volume. Okay, so this volume can get to a certain point and it's big enough to be able to move into this further, progress further into becoming a sentient energy. So as a result, the ability for myriad, let's say lots of, small but nevertheless substantial bodies of energy with conscious intelligence capable of developing sentience later is actually ensured. And from the perspective of a source entity, this is looking from the perspective of one of our source entities, not specifically our source entity, but one of the other source entities, this function occurs in a restricted area where energies are allowed to develop in this way specifically for the creation of a sentient energy. And that is internally external to the main bodies of energy that are associated with the source entity itself. So it's a little bit like it's got a compartmentalized area within itself that's allowing certain energies to evolve to the point of sentience, where it could potentially use them itself for its own generation of entities. So then the next point is the generation of the desire to create. Okay? So the desire to create is a function of the energy that occurs when it reaches its terminal volume and has a substantial longevity. It's been around a long time. The creations being rudimentary, their very presence is a sign that the energy is developing a personality within its conscious intelligence. Personality, no matter how limited, illustrates the desire to create in certain known and repeatable ways specific to the energy and its level of conscious intelligence. So in this instance, it's starting to show it's got a level of sentience, albeit rudimentary, but the ability to try and create is part of that function. But the next thing is recognising it's doing it. So the recognition of a reason for the desire to create is fundamental to this next step in sentience, ability to have sentience. So the creation and the desire to create may be a single action or multiple series of actions. In the single condition, the creation can be a product of the desire to create, but that desire may be transitory, i.e. it may come and go, and therefore only occur once, or maybe twice. It's therefore the recognition of the desire to create that triggers the multiple creation condition. Recognition is established as a function, therefore, of the entity wanting to repeat, and therefore desires the product of the act of creation, irrespective of what it is. So the energy is now starting to become almost entitized. It's starting to become individualized in all ways, shape and form. It's having an energy, it's got intelligence, it's got creativity, it's got desire. It's starting to create this ability to become something more than just simply intelligent energy, or simply energy which has the ability to do certain things. So it moves on to two further areas now, specifically to do with creation. And the first one is creation with no focus or direction. And that means that this is creation for creation's sake. And it is the result of a condition of the desire to create in either singular or multiple conditions, just to see the act and the process of creation in action. So this is basically just, think of it in terms of having a bunch of balloons in your hand, and you're just blowing these balloons up and tying the end and then letting them go, just to see what happens when you let them go. Do they get stuck in the bush? Do they get stuck in a tree? Or do they rise up into the air and get blown by the wind? That sort of thing. It's just seeing what happens when you do the same thing over and over again. But the next process is when creation has a focus or a desired outcome. And this is the intelligent use of an energy's creative ability to produce something from the energies around it. That is the focus of the entity and is directed to achieve a desired product. So in effect, this is a major step forwards for energy in terms of its sentient ability. It's starting to think in terms of, right, I've done this bit of creativity before and I've learnt this. Now I'm going to do something else instead and see what else I can learn. Once it's done that now, if it moves forward in its progression or its evolution, it starts to analyse the creation of its directed outcome and its actual outcome. So it starts to look at what it wanted versus what happened. And so the analysis of the products of creation in terms of the desired outcome and the actual outcome allows the creating, I'm going to call it an entity now rather than energy, to reflect on its creativity process and enter into the thought processes that result in modification, which is the next point, the next progression. But we all want to note here that creations up to this point are uncomplicated. Complicated creations are a result of sentience. So if you think of it in terms of, consider at this point in an energy evolution that the objects of creation are as basic as the creation of a ball or a wheel or other objects of interest that are of similar complexity. So in effect, this level of creativity is very, very rudimentary, but it's still nevertheless creativity. Next point is the modification of creativity to increase the accuracy of actual versus desired outcome. And this is the point where the energy is on the point of sentience, but without tipping the balance into sentience. So here, the energy, or the entity, okay, is able to think, experience, and create in a rational way. And it should be understood here that the entity's experience is enhanced as a function of entering into the creative process. So this is another major step forward. Things are starting to happen exponentially here because the energy, now an entity, starts to move forwards. It starts to become able to understand what it's doing, rationalise what it's doing, and decide to go in certain areas. And so the accrual of evolutionary content as a result of this is absolute. It's going to happen, full stop. I think I've lost the words there, but we're going to see in a moment clearly. But in effect, the accrual of evolutionary content as a result of this work is an absolute function of the steps that the energy, now an entity, has come to this point right now. It's going to happen because it's got to this point. So when an energy enters into the creativity process, it also enters into another level of experience. And the experience creates a learning condition which in turn creates evolutionary content. So it's an upward spiral. So based upon this, the more entity creates and learns, the more it evolves and gains evolutionary content. And so the accrual of evolutionary content accelerates the increase of an energies, or the entity, intelligence quotient, consciousness, and enhances personality. It is an essential prerequisite, I have to say, to the recognition of evolution and its accrual of evolutionary content. So in this instance, the energy, now an entity, starts to recognise that it can move its own evolutionary condition, level, upwards by doing certain things, by creating certain things. So this recognition of the accrual of evolutionary content is important. So an energy, upon recognising its increasing intelligence and breadth in personality, breadth and depth, whatever you want to call it, that being the recognition of preferential desires, will also recognise that it accrues evolutionary content as a result of the variety of experiences it experiences, the quality of those experiences and the subsequent learning. And on the point of recognising personal evolution and its accrual of this personal evolution, the energy stroke entity can and does experience a radical change in its mental capacity and capability, moving on to the next point, which is the generation of sentience. Okay? The generation of sentience is an instantaneous pan-energetic effect that can only happen when the energy, now an entity, experientially recognises its own evolution and how it accrues evolutionary content. So at this point in its existence, the energy is and can be classified as a new energetic sentient energy or entity in its own right. And this pulls on to the next point, where the recognition of sentience as a separate function within the original energy or energies. Because now we've got the energy stroke entity that's now got sentience, and it starts to think of itself as being something other than the energies. It starts to recognise that it's no longer something which is energy, it is beyond energy. It's a little bit like us having an epiphany moment when we recognise that we're not the human body we exist within, but we're beyond the body that we exist within. So it's along those lines. So, the recognition of personal sentience is achieved when the energy, now an energetic entity, experiences the movement of its sentience within the volume of its energies, or energy. And the recognition can be achieved when the entity notices that it is able to focus its sentience into one specific area of the volume of energy or energies that it is associated with, and can move the location of that focus at will. So it starts to realise that its sentience is transportable within the body of energies. Okay? Its next step is the ability to disassociate the sentience from the original body of energies. Okay? And this is a function of experimenting with the focus of the sentience. The experimentation resulting in the ability of the sentience to be focused at points outside of the natural barrier created by the entity's energies as well as within them. And at this point, the entity stroke energy starts to recognise that it is sentience that makes it an entity and not the energies that ultimately gave birth to that sentience. So it's starting to recognise in an absolute way that everything that it is the sentience and not the energies. It's beyond those things that gave birth to it. The final point is quite important because this is where we are right now, or where we can be right now. And that is the ability to commandeer a new energy. So having established that its being is its sentience and that it can disassociate itself from its original energies, the sentience, that is the entity, was the energies, can now move itself to a new energy or group of energies that are in a low level of specialism and commandeer them for its own benefit. This can be for a different body of energy, allowing the sentience to enhance its experience, learning and evolutionary content, or to use those energies as a medium for transporting the sentience from one location to another within the environment within which the original body of energies was involved within and evolved within. And so this is really a basic understanding of how energies go from being basic energies and develop sentience to the point where they become entities like ourselves. And an entity needs to go through certainly the first there's about 17, there's about 20 points there, by the way. It needs to get to the point 16 or 17 before that energy can really become classified as sentient. And so it needs to be able to go through those points to get to that level of sentience. And if we evolved on our own as energies, then we would go through those points, and it would take a long time to do it. What we are is energy given sentience, or should I say sentience given a body of energy, because we were created by a source entity in most of our cases. And so that defines how an energy can create the ability to sustain and can in fact itself sustain sentience. Any questions on that? Because it's a very, very deep subject. Stunned silence. All your microphones are on mute one, let's say.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
You know, if we love an animal, do we get that animal, can we create evolutionary energy in that animal to evolve?
Okay, yeah. Do you want to turn your microphone off, Chris? I'll answer the question. Basically, lower grade energies.
Hear you.
Yeah. Lower grade energies are capable of evolving purely by being associated with a higher grade energy. So if we, as a sentient energy, work with a lower grade level of energy, I mean, animals have levels of sentience that are unseen to us clearly, but they nevertheless are sentient, but they're a different quality of energy, different quality of sentience. They can progress themselves. They can progress in a different way. The issue is that we, as a higher level of entity, would and do allow them to progress themselves. So we, with their association with us, we help them evolve further themselves. And eventually, animals can get to the point where they may move over into being the same level of quality as a human body of energy, for instance. Any other quick questions on that? I think we've had some poor audio as well, so if people can just bear with me, the recording will be much better. Okay. Okay, Adriana's got a question. Yeah. Well, hang on, Chris. Adriana's got a question. So the first question Adriana's got is our true energetic self sentient and not the aspects or shards, or do we, as aspects or shards, work in these to get it? Right. Basically, the true energetic self is a body of energy that has been either given to us or we've commandeered. And so the aspects and shards that are projected from it into a vehicle, human vehicle, for instance, a physical vehicle, are also sentient, but have, shall I say, percentages of sentience there, based upon the fact that it's projected into, and there's a smaller level of mass of sentient energy that's projected into the human form. Okay. Now, others asked a question about bilocation, and okay, thank you, Adriana. Does that answer your question, Adriana? I think it might do. Yeah. Okay. So it will ask, does bilocation belong to point 20? Point 20 being the last one. So the answer is bilocation is something that we can do when we are incarnate, and therefore, if you like, is something which happens when we go beyond point 20, the last point. And so the answer is yes, but no. It's something we can do when we incarnate, when we are self-aware. We can move our consciousness or our sentience from one body to another body, or create another body by pure creation, manifestation, in a different location, because we've got that level of shall I say, evolutionary content that allows us to do this whilst we are incarnate. We're able to understand fully who and what we are whilst we're in the incarnate condition, rather than having this loss of memory which we sometimes get. Okay. That answers that question. Mattis says, is this valid for all energy within the origin, or is it based upon source sensitivity or just our source sensitivity? It's valid for all energy within the origin and or a source sensitivity. It's that particular set of rules or set of progressive conditions that I've just talked about is valid for all energy, irrespective of whether it's within the origin or one of the particular source entities or our source entity. Now, bearing in mind that our source entity is an individualized unit of a, shall I say, a commandeered group of energies that our origin gave sentience to, then you understand that it is exactly the same. We are all, it's in its essence, smaller versions of individualized units of origin energy, irrespective of whether we were created by the origin or whether we were created by the source entity, which is what most people are. So it's a common thing. It's a universal rule in this instance, Matthias. So that's probably the best way to explain it for you. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions there? No? Yes? Because I'd like to move on to the next bit now. What happens to the earthly personality when it dies? Okay. Right. Well, let me move on to this next section here. What happens to the earthly personality when it dies? In essence, the personality that's in the human form is a very transient condition. It appears and grows purely because of the level of communication between the true energetic self and the aspect, whilst the aspect is projected, or the shard, by the way, that is projected into the human vehicle. So, because of this lack of communication, because of this, we're in a completely low frequency condition, the ability for the aspect, whilst incarnate, to communicate in a meaningful way, a logical way, an understandable way, a knowing way, is massively reduced down to almost nothingness whilst incarnate. And so therefore, the aspect that is within the human form, or any other incarnate body within the physical universe, by the way, not specifically the human form, let's make this particularly clear, start to develop its own personality. Now, if you think about what I've just talked about in terms of creating sentience, about personality being part of it, and understanding of self being part of it, this is, if you like, a sentient energy regaining its own sentience, but in an individualized state, separated out, or it thinks it is separated out, or alone from that which it is ultimately connected to. So the personality is something that is created as a result of the aspect which is projected and housed within the human vehicle, experiencing things throughout the longevity of the human vehicle. As we experience life, as we go to school, as we get involved with people, we gain friendships, we gain relationships, we have careers, we have successes and failures, or we think we have failures and successes, and we move forwards or backwards or sideways or whatever we do. We do certain things and meet certain people, we experience certain things. We accrue a certain level of memories and experiences, and all of these things together create a personality based upon how we interface with our family and friends and those individuals we meet in our working life as well. The thing is, this particular personality is what we call the ego. This ego, this personality, is separate, it's individualized. It doesn't belong to the true entity itself. It is doomed to disappearing or demise when the physical body demises, because it has no place within what we are. Now then, one of the biggest problems that most spiritual individuals has when they talk about this or hear about this is, well, I don't want my personality to die, because although I'm supposed to be a bigger entity, and I am living forever, for instance, what you're telling me now is that bit that I recognise as me, this bit that's grown with the physical body, actually does die when the physical body dies. And this is the dichotomy that a lot of people have, is that they start to think themselves as the physical body. And the ego, in its method of trying to perpetuate itself, its existence, does everything it can to substantiate that thought process. But when the physical body dies, what happens is quite natural. Throughout the lifetime of the physical body, everything that's been experienced has also been naturally recorded by the true energetic self as well. So all that personality, all those different things, those little traits, little desires and likes and preferences are also transported back to the true energetic self, because these are the functions of experience. They're also the functions that allow evolutionary content to be accrued. And so although we think that the personality dies with the physical body, actually the essence that created the personality exists continuously, because it's continuously recorded. So when the physical body dies, everything that created the personality is already recorded by the true energetic self. It's already there. If we find ourselves as a shard that's occupying a human body, then that information is transported back to the aspect, which is then transported back to the true energetic self. A shard is a, if you like, a subdivision of an aspect. So the person, that which we are, the memory set, everything, isn't lost at all. It's just that it's recorded in a different way. The ego, which is created as a result of this personality, does in fact die. It disappears. It can't be sustained because there's nothing there to sustain it anymore. But everything that we are, that we've experienced, that we do, that we believe in, and that we worked with, that we've progressed with, is already within that which we are. It's already within the source. It's already within the origin. So there's no loss of anything. Nothing is lost. It's just that this little bit of individualization, which is a subdivision, for instance, of the sentience that's been projected into the human vehicle as a result of the aspect being projected into it, and finds itself, or thinks itself, as being separated because of the low frequencies and the lack of bandwidth, for want of a better word, in terms of communication, is no longer able to be sustained because it is part of something much bigger. Now, the ego will do everything it can do to perpetuate this condition. If we, as incarnate entities, start to become self-aware, and we start to recognise that there's a greater reality out there, and we start to be able to work with that greater reality, then the ego starts to get concerned and worried because it starts to realise that its time is going to come faster than it would do if the physical form was dying. So it tries to keep us in the low frequencies, so that it tries to perpetuate its dominance over the physical form, over the thought process that it is what we are. And so we get all sorts of feelings of fear, of latching onto materialism, of not believing certain spiritual things, of being in denial from that which we maybe have experienced as being fundamentally correct, because the ego wants to sustain itself for as long as possible. It knows its time is limited, but it wants to maintain that time for as long as it can do. So really, our personality is continuously being fed back to our true energetic self. If we're a shard, back to the aspect, and then back to the true energetic self, or for a full aspect, back to the true energetic self itself. And then what happens is when the human body devises and we move back into the true energetic self, we start to lose our smallness, our smallness of personality, because we start to gain all of those memories, all those experiences, all that evolutionary content, everything that we, as an aspect, even if we're a shard, and all of the other aspects and shards that are associated with the Trinity itself have accrued over the, shall I say, millennia of years, where incarnation has been had at various different levels. And so we become bigger. And as we become bigger, we absorb all this information, and we become part of our Trinity itself again. So we are still there. We have an individualized part of ourselves, because the Trinity itself recognizes that we are specialized and it can use us for certain things. But it's like us being able to access, it's like us being the Trinity itself but still being individualized from it, if that makes any sense. And that's what happens at the end. We gain, it's like all of our memories come back. It's like all of a sudden we've come back from having a massive memory loss, and we become everything that we were, and everything else that was there as well. So Lily asks, how was the ego created in the first place? Well, basically the ego is created through separation, or through a low frequency environment within which there is a need for an incarnate vehicle. And because the frequencies down here are so low, the ability to communicate in a meaningful way at the higher frequencies is impossible, or nearly impossible. And so therefore the energy that is projected into physical form becomes individualized, so to speak, and that's how the ego is created. Okay. Does that answer that question for you, Lily? Does that make sense? Great, yes, thanks. Fantastic. Okay. So I think I've become much more clearer now. So, does anybody else have any questions on this particular subject? Because we're starting to get towards the end of our time. I think Ulla's got another question very quickly. Okay. Don't forget, all of this is recorded, so you can dive back into it at any time. I'll send it out later after this particular Satsanga. The next Satsanga, I believe, is going to be on the 29th of March, because I'm out of the country for a bit. Okay. Is the recording continuously, not yearly or 7-year or some such cycle? No, it's continuous. It's absolutely continuous. If you were to use a piece of computer terminology, it's real time. Everything that is recorded and is taken, is absorbed by the Trinity itself from everything we experience, including what we're doing right now, is instantaneously recorded. It's just that the method of recording doesn't eradicate this generation of the separate personality or the ego. That's just an unfortunate piece of work. It's just that there are functions that happen with us that are not particularly logical from our perspective as an incarnate human, but certainly you'd like to think, well, hang about it. If this information goes back to the true entity itself and is recorded, then why does this ego, why does this personality get created? And the answer is that one's an automatic function, and the other one is an ego or a personality that's created through neuron separation. And that's another question. How is that different from the Akashic records for individuals? The Akashic records is specific to the information that's accrued by every aspect that's incarnated within the physical universe, and only for the physical universe. So it would include also all of those other entities that are out there, the different form factors, whether you want to call them insectoid, reptiloid, humanoid, gaseoid, amoeboid, all of those different things. If they come into the physical universe, they are part of the Akashic records. The Akashic record isn't specifically to do with the information that's accrued by the true energetic self. The Akashic record is something which is accrued separately by the source entity, based upon what every entity experiences when incarnates within the physical universe. Does that answer that question, Ulla? because it's important to note that the Akashic is nothing to do with us. It's something that the source entity creates. And we can work with it, and we do work with it. And sometimes we can incarnate, and basically we can pull in all sorts of information from different people's lives, different aspects' lives, to augment our own abilities here. And she asked another question, says, yes, are there records in Earth, Sun or galaxy centres? It's beyond the physical. It's well beyond the physical. The Akashic records are outside of, shall I say, the hard structure that we call the physical universe. It's in the rest of the multiverse, if that makes any sense. We would access it when we disincarnate, not as part of an incarnate existence. Although there are individuals who can clearly tap into them with the special gifts. Their abilities have been carried through with them as part of their incarnate existence. They've been allowed to remember certain things, and therefore they can access the Akashic at a certain level whilst incarnate. But they're not part of particularly certain areas. Although clearly, as with all databases, and let's think of it in this way: the Akashic record is a database. There's going to be databases based upon those individuals who have incarnated on Earth or other areas within the physical universe. And you could log into the Akashic and say, okay, tell me about a certain subject about individuals who have incarnated on Earth or have incarnated on a planet in the Orion Nebula and those sort of areas. And you could do that way. Okay. Right. Does that answer your question, Ulla? Because it's quite an important. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Well, if does anybody else have any questions? Because I'd like to go into the meditation now, if possible, because we're starting to run out of our event space, so to speak. Not that event space can be run out of, but it can be stretched. Okay. Okay. So let's go into this meditation then. Okay. We've got 9. 1, 2, 3, 8. 9, there's 10 of us now, which is good. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to heal the Earth, because there's a lot of changes been happening with all of the energy changes. We're going to raise the Earth's energy, by the way, by healing it. And this will help us move individually and collectively, and it'll help the Earth as well. And it'll also help with some of the things that we've done to the Earth, and help to correct some of those levels of negativity to do with mining and extracting oil and breaking gases from the North Sea and other areas of the Atlantic, etc., and Pacific, whatever. And really help the Earth move forwards and ourselves move forwards in the process. So what I want you to do now is just to sit. If you've got a straight backed chair, fine. If you haven't, try and sit as straight as possible, with your feet flat on the ground, your palms uppermost on your thighs, just where your thighs meet your lower body, and close your eyes and focus the focus of your eyes or your attention onto the area of the origin of the third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. Okay. And let's just sink into that. And I want you to imagine that you're in a corridor, a nice white corridor. And that white corridor stretches out in front of you for about 50 or so meters, 50, 60 meters or 50, 60 yards. At the end of this corridor is a door. Okay. You can think of it in terms of it being white or brown or grey or black, whatever. But I'm going to call it a white door in a white corridor. And so we walk down towards this white door. And when you get to the white door, I want you to open it and close it behind you. And then look to the centre of the room, because all there's going to be is 3 chairs there. Okay? and I am going to be sitting in the middle chair. And I want you to either sit on my right hand side or my left hand side. Okay? And when you sit down, I want you to take my left hand with your right hand or my right hand with your left hand. And just imagine yourself linking into me with this connection, this connectivity that is us together. Now, right now, there's potentially 9 of you, 5 one side and 4 the other side, or 3 one side and 6 the other side. That doesn't matter. But I want you to imagine that wherever you are, in terms of your being left to me or right to me, that everybody else is in a circle around. So we've got everybody's connected with their right hand connecting to somebody else's left hand, and their left hand connecting to somebody else's right hand. And so we have a circle of individuals, where there's myself, and there's Ula, and there's Adriana, and there's Mo, and there's Ivan, and there's Matthias, and there's Lily, and there's Chris, and there's John, and there's Joe. And we're all together in a circle. We're all holding hands, and we're all becoming one. One in this circle. There's 10 of us. So we have the ability of 100 people. Because the synergetic effect is a multiple of the number that is in the collective meditative state. And so, while we're in this state, I want you to imagine that in the centre of us is a little hologram. And this hologram is a football-sized image of the Earth. Okay? This is a football image size of the Earth. And it's in front of us. Okay? And so this football-sized image of the Earth represents the Earth, and it's almost like we are satellites. We are satellites rotating around the Earth. We're not, of course, but that's where we are. That's the sort of impression we get, because that's how large we would appear to be to ourselves compared to this hologram, of a football-sized image of the Earth. Now, with the Earth in the centre, we can take the Earth with us wherever we want to go. And I want you to imagine that this room that we're in is actually a large lift. It's a large lift. And on the right-hand wall of this large lift is a number pad. Every button that's on there has a number on it. So it's a button to a number, from 0 right up to 100. And what I want you to imagine now is that I push the button that's got the number 100 on it, and the lift, with us all holding hands, and in the centre of our circle of us all holding hands is this hologram of the planet Earth, and we all start to rise up together from this level 0 up past 1, and then 5, and then 10, and then level 20. We're moving up the frequencies. Okay, every one of those numbers is a frequency level. So we're moving up to frequency 30 and 40, accelerating and 60 and 80, slowing down now at 90 and 95, and slowing down even more, 96 and 97 and 98, and almost coming to a halt at 99 and then 100. And then where we are right now is just some location within the 100th frequency. 100th frequency is the 87th simultaneous universe. So I want us to now think of our lift as moving itself to the absolute dead centre of this frequential environment that holds or sustains this 89th simultaneous universe. Now those of you who've done the level 2 Traversing the Frequencies workshop will know that this level is where the source starts to pay attention to us. This is where it starts to realise that some of its incarnate children are breaking free of the veil of the physical and are starting to become aware that they can project their consciousness into the higher frequencies associated with the multiverse. And so at this point, we think about our lift again. And imagine our lift walls and the floor and the roof becoming transparent totally. And so we start to see this universe, this simultaneous universe, this 89th simultaneous universe represented on the 100th frequency level. Don't forget the first simultaneous universe is the physical universe, and that needs 12 frequencies to make it work. Is all around us, and we're in the dead centre. And then, from nowhere, we see in the distance a vortex appearing, like a tornado. This tornado looks like it's very gold and silvery and white, and with flecks of silver and gold and white rotating around it. Very energetic, very dynamic, very powerful vortex. It stretches down towards our group, which is within this lift. Comes towards us, it's iridescent, rotating and pulsating and energetic tornado, and this vortex comes towards us. And all of a sudden it creates a ball. This ball engulfs us. It engulfs our lift, it engulfs our group, it engulfs the hologram of the Earth. And as a result of this engulfing, we start to lose our coherence. We start to become part of the energies of this vortex. These energies pervade us. They are within and without us. They invade the space in between our atomic structure, in between the atoms, in between the quarks, in between the subatomic particles below the quarks, right down to the Anu, which is the first basic level of structure that the physical universe is created from. And so we become this energy which is pure source energy. And this energy allows all of us, including the Earth, to be pulled up to this 100th frequency level. We're not entities that have travelled up to this 100th frequency level that exist on the 0 level, but we are now fully entities that are on this 100th frequency level. And so we are here also iridescent, also dynamic, also radiant, also gold and silver and white, pulsating and omnipotent as well. So is the lift, and so is the Earth. The Earth is pulled up, as we are, as the lift is, this level, becoming part of it. Allow it to course through what is you, because there is no you anymore. There is no difference between you and the vortex, or you and the hologram, or you and the lift. We are all one and the same. Everything is part of the source at this level. Everything is at this level. Nothing is below it. Nothing is above it. Nothing is to the side of it. Because there is structure within structure. And we are totally absorbed. That which is us, was us, could be us, is no longer us. We are now part of the source, although our sentience is still there. And so at this point, where we are now, is in pure beingness. We exist on the 100th frequency level. The lift exists on the 100th frequency level. And the Earth exists on a 100 frequency level, not just the 12 frequency levels associated with the physical universe. And so with this level of absorption, we have become that which we are part of, this 100 frequency level. And so with this job done, the vortex starts to separate itself from us, leaving us back as individualized entities, as an individualized construct, that is the lift, as an individualized body of local density, which is the Earth. And so the energies start to move away from the gaps in between the atomic structure, in between the nu and in between the quarks, and in between the atoms and the electrons and the protons, moving away, allowing us to become what we are again, previously and now still individualized as we are. And the vortex moves back, removing itself away from us, and separates itself totally and starts to disappear into the distance. And we are still energized now at this 100 frequency level. We are part of this 100 frequency level, even though we've now been individualized. And so we can now move down to the 0 level, bringing the Earth with us, with the Earth also energized. First, though, the walls of our lift start to become solid again. They start to become opaque. So they're part of this room that we were in previously. And so I push the button for the number 0, and the lift starts to descend the frequencies from this center point of the simultaneous universe that exists on this 100th frequency, and we drop down slowly at first, past 99 and 98, and then 95, and then 90, and then 80, and then 60 and 40 as it accelerates down the frequencies and starts to slow again at midpoint, 30 and 20, slowing down even further at 15, and then 10, slowing down even further at 5, and 4, and 3, almost coming to a stop at 2, and 1, and 0. And now, this lift now becomes our room again, our white room, where we're all linking hands together with our hologram of the Earth in the centre, with everybody's right hand contacting somebody's left hand, and everybody's left hand contacting somebody's right hand. And so, in doing this, we have eradicated all negativity from the Earth. And Lily's asked about chemtrails. Can chemtrails be eliminated from the Earth? And in doing what we've done now, we've done that. We've momentarily removed the damage that those things can do to the Earth in the locations that they are being spread. And so now we start to think of ourselves as being to the right of me, with my right hand taking your left hand, or to the left of me, with my left hand taking your right hand. And so, with the circle broken, the hologram of the Earth disappears. And now you can stand up, let go of my right hand with your left hand, or my left hand with your right hand, and move back towards the door. Open the door and close it behind you, and walk back down that corridor towards the end of the corridor where you started from, which is about 50 or 60 or 70 metres or yards away from the door. And this puts you back into the location that you are now. Back in your own rooms, sat at your own computers, in your own houses, in your own cities, in your own parts of the world. And so now you can slowly open your eyes and come back into this location. And open your eyes slowly, and if you get a chance, drink some water if you've got water. That'll help to stabilise you. Okay. So, how are you all after that?
Good.
The Earth is very happy about what we've done for it. I can tell you that now. Good.
I feel very energized, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yes, I mean, actually, we do retain some of this energy at its different levels. It does seem, it is as easy as that. And most of her body became a light as, yes. Lily was very pleased, saying it's awesome, great. And Chris is writing something. We will all retain some of this energy. As clearly it'll start to dissipate a little bit as we get engrossed in the physical again, the material world again. But just try to think of yourself as being in that place on a daily basis. As you wake up in the morning, just think of yourself as being in that place. And yes, Joe, sending lights to the earth is a very good thing, and sending energy to the earth and raising its frequencies is a very good thing. So actually you can think about, if you wanted to, you could think about this meditation once or twice a week, and it would put you back into this event space, and you'd be doing exactly the same thing again with all of us here. And anybody else who's listening to this recording who didn't get a chance to join into the Satsanga will also be adding to it and adding another multiplication factor to it. Mm-hmm. So it's, yeah, so every time you do this on your own, if you wanted to, you'll also be putting yourself back into that level as well, which is fantastic. And of course, it also helps the earth as well, which is what we're all trying to do. Okay, well, we've been doing this for nearly an hour and a quarter. So I'd like to thank you all very much for dialing in and being part of it and listening to me give you information about the greater reality and specifically about how energy can sustain sentience and what happens to the earthly personality when the physical body dies. And thank you very much for helping the earth. And thank you all very much for being here. And I wish you a pleasant morning, evening, or mid-afternoon, and looking forward to speaking to you all again on the 29th of March, I think it will be. Thank you very much. Namaste to you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Matcha. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, John. And thank you, Joe. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. You're all of inspiration.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?